So the next recipe we're going to do are the Kaab Ghazal. So these are a really popular Moroccan cookie known as Ghazal's horns. So Ghazals are really important in like poetry and music and the culture, just for as a symbol of beauty, a symbol of good luck. That the idea of the horn is something like, you know, someone will call someone, like, instead of a, maybe like we would use the word chick, it's a gazelle in Morocco, and they say even a beetle is a gazelle in his mother's eyes. So like that's the ultimate symbol of beauty. And so these cookies look like the little gazelle horns, and I've seen really big ones, or I've seen little teeny tiny ones. We're gonna go kind of more on the smaller side today, but they have a beautiful dough, and then they have the almond paste in the middle. So again, think about you know, making your own almond paste. I struggled with it today with our little rudimentary food processor. Imagine 2,000 years ago in the desert having to grind the nuts to a certain thing and having enough sugar. You know, Europe didn't have this much sugar until the 19th century. So this was very, whenever I look at a culture and you look at what, you know, ingredients they have, to have oil from almond, to have almond flour, and to have that much sugar 2,000 years ago, to me was a really big sign of sophistication. And it's a delicious recipe. Alex loves it. And so hopefully everybody else will enjoy it too. But it's a nice one to make at the holidays. You can make them in advance and freeze it. They're very appreciative. They're labor intensive. So not everybody makes it. So it's kind of like there's like the one lady in the neighborhood that's her specialty. And so we're going to learn them today. So for this one, we're going to make a very tender dough. And we've got, in the dough, we have flour and sugar and eggs, a little bit of lemon and orange. And I'm just going to start by kind of mixing everything all together in here. I've got some vanilla. Here they have powdered vanilla because they don't do the alcohol. So the baking vanilla is always powdered. And I've got some dry yeast. You can just add that right in. Sorry about that. And we've got some flour. Nice one to beat.
How is that powder? Is that powdered vanilla better than the liquid?
By a lot of American standards, no, in terms of flavor, because a lot of Americans like the really fresh, pure vanilla flavor. This is gonna have like more of a vanilla-in type of a thing, but it's very common here. It's what's available. It's what's used. So it's not a problem. Just for a little bit of flavor.
Yeah.
So we can put those right in there too. And for the orange, I don't have a grater. At home I would do the zest. So here I'm just going to do the juice. But if you're at home and you want to do the zest and the juice, that's really a good combination as well. And I spoke to the windows. يصير تبي أعمل الكاب غزال في البيت؟ لا ليه كده؟ في ناس متخصصين مش كده؟ So Shadia says she doesn't make them at home because there's people specialized for that. So, but I think it's really fun. It's one of my favorites. And whenever I meet Moroccan people in the States, I bring them some Kaab Ghazal and they're like really impressed. Sarah, were you able to ever get any in LA? Were you ever able to find any Kaab Ghazal in LA?
No, unfortunately.
So now I'm going to add my butter. You wouldn't want to add the smen to this because it's a little bit delicate of a recipe. So you want to add the butter, something that's just going to give it that nice delicate flavor. A lot of the modern bakeries nowadays use the oil, but I think that the butter makes it really nice. More of a tender dough. And if you don't want to do the almond paste, if for some reason someone can't have nuts, you could put a fruit filling in the middle, a dried fruit filling, or any other kind of filling too, but the almond obviously is what's traditional here. So there's a difference between almond paste and marzipan, even though they look alike. The marzipan usually can have up to a 70% content, whereas the almond paste is half and half sugar and half almond. Oh, okay.
The marzipan can be up to 70% sugar,
Yes.
so it's sweet for 30, yeah.
And you know, in Europe, marzipan is an art form. And they brought it from here, but then they have it there and they dye it. They make it into little shapes, little snowmen, little peaches, all kinds of shapes to do the marzipan. But people don't usually think that it comes from here. and it totally does. So now, to make the homemade almond paste, so I've got the almonds that Shadia ground really finely for me here, and the sugar. Normally, if I was home, I would throw the blanched almonds in the food processor and just do it all together one time, but the food processor here is like teeny tiny, so we're doing it a different way. عايز شوية زبدة كتير أكتر أو أسير برتقال؟ ممكن أسير. We're going to put a little bit more juice in here. So now in this guy, I'll put my ground almonds and the sugar. This is almond paste. And then I'm going to add a little bit of, she's doing the outside, the dough, and I'm making the paste, the filling. So I'm going to put some of this sweet almond oil in here. And I'm going to pass this around because this is the one I'm going to make everybody buy for massage. Only one of the reverse.
And wrinkles.
And wrinkles, that's right. Who's remembered? Good for you. And then we have the orange blossom water. So look at this, you guys. This is sweet almond oil, not extract oil. So this is something that they make here, still make it artisanally, as you can see by the bottle. Most places, every other country, I know with the exception of Lebanon, no one makes it anymore. They all buy it, but here they make it. And if you smell it, it smells like what the Riyadh smells like when they wake up in the morning, you know, because they're usually burning this. And we can get some and bring it home. It's a really nice little souvenir, but I'll just pass it around so you don't smell it and give it back to me. I'm using it in like every recipe. So if anyone wants to come up and feel this dough, it would be a nice opportunity to just see, you know, what a beautiful dough this is to work with. So this I would normally do this in the food processor, but come right around here. Come right around. Yeah, nice and tender.
Very small. Very
So I'm gonna.
So it looks like you need
See that? Like that?
Yeah, no. No.
Yummy.
So good.
Oh my gosh. Smell it. Oh.
Snappers?
And do what with it? Just knead it. Get a little
So good. So good.
By the time we get through, there'll be
You can just use regular.
Yeah, at home I use regular. You use regular. That's just what it's.
Good.
They have different ways of milling. You know what I mean? So.
And it's, oh, yeah.
They might have put that.
Wil vi hagen dus kwijt met het mannen ook in de handen, dat is verschillend.
You want it back in the roll? Amy, you want this back in the roll? Yeah, I do. Oh, smell your fingers. Yes.
So I've got the almonds and the water here, and I think I'm going to add a little bit of egg white, just to get them to stick together a little bit more. Egg, just like they made the pastry.
Does she want this?
White already.
No.
Oh, that's, no, that's for a cake. That's for the
Yeah,
cake.
exactly. There's no marble in there.
Amy? Over
No,
here?
that's for the cake. Amy.
Oh, this is for the cake?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really
Egg whites.
You're looking for egg whites?
Yeah, I have them in a little tin.
Right, they were in something like that. Yeah. Because I put them there.
So how do you know you need to add that white, Amy?
Just because it's not really holding together so well. You know, want something to make it stick a little bit more. You can just give me an egg. I'll just go for it.
I found the eggs, not the egg whites.
These are probably the freshest eggs we'll ever have.
Yes.
What I'm going to do is divide this up, and everybody can kind of make their own. We have a little station over there with a little bit more room. I'll move that stuff off, and then we can use that as our kind of rolling station. And we'll roll some out and cut them and fill them and get them in the oven. Okay. Wash my hands.
Is it temperature in the oven at the right temperature?
Have we tried? Good thing we have experience.
Good, yeah.
I'm gonna come right around you. I'm sorry.
Sure.
The other nice thing when you work with the butter and the eggs and almonds,
Moisturizes your hands.
it really moisturizes your hands very well. Beautiful. Okay, so we divide this into 4.
So we're not letting that rise even though it has yeast.
Yeah, no, you don't have to let it. It makes them a little puffy in the oven. Super. So now we're going to switch sides and go to the other table. And this guy, I'm done with him, so I
Amy, do you want this bowl also?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
She'll come in. We'll need some flour. We'll move this little around. flour down on the bottom and kind of start out pressing it down like this. And then put a little bit more flour on top and a little bit of flour on the rolling pin. And just roll it out really thin from the middle. It always seems like when you're doing these doughs that you need to go to the sides, but the middle is kind of where the thickness hangs onto. So if you can just keep going back and forth like this, it'll continue to stretch. And we want it quite thin. So a little thinner than even what you would do for pizza.
Eighth of an inch.
Yeah. You can make this dough ahead of time and freeze it. You can make the paste ahead of time. You can make the cookies ahead of time. So it's even though it's a little bit of labor, but it's a nice, kind of easy thing to do once you have the operation all in progress.
And if you're doing this at home, Amy, and have the luxury of all the time in the world, would it be better to let that rest a little bit so it wouldn't be quite so elastic?
Yeah, you can. Whenever, and Kim brings up a really good point, whenever you are making something that has yeast in it, a bread, something after it's risen, even if you let it hang out for like 10, 15 minutes, it just becomes a little bit lighter and won't spring back at you as much when you're kneading. So it makes your work easier. It doesn't hurt anything recipe-wise to do this. It's just that I have to work farther. Can you all see this wrinkle here? Mm-hmm. As I move forward, I have this one little wrinkle that's coming right here. So that's how I know it's thin enough. Sometimes in here, it becomes very thick, so I would just continue to roll out from that way. But once I can start to see through it on the side and it's pretty uniform, so I know it's good. So then, what you can do is take the cutter and dip it into a little bit more flour, and then make these little circles right out like this. And then you can, just like cut out cookies, you can use the excess later.
Or eat it.
Someone said lunch today. What did you all have for lunch today?
We did. No, we didn't.
What? All right, we better get on those and something. So I will have Shadia, and Hanan, I'll have you show them how to.
Can you roll it more than once?
Oh yeah, we're gonna roll that out again. But, and I'll do some on this one. You can make these bigger if you want to, or smaller.
Oh, they're like a little
Mezzaluna.
So we're gonna have them, and then you're gonna make sure that they're sealed.
empanada.
Yeah.
Kind of
Depending
roll
where
it
you
out
come from.
on the side,
And then roll one.
and make it this way so that it becomes more of a horn, pointed side shape. What's a
Horrible
horrible?
are they? Yeah.
Split
Yeah.
easily.
And to be honest, looking for bait?
Practice is what helps.
Oh,
It was a failure.
Yeah, like it. Whichever choose for you to just one.
and then just whatever way that you think looks more like a horn. You can pull them out, and then we'll get them on the baking sheet and we'll bake them.
And
So,
where's the baking sheet?
Fantastic.
we've got some back here. I'll get those ready. So